Glitch Productions has really made a name for themselves, making really unique and really one-of-a-kind cartoons. One of the ways that makes it so unique is its aesthetic and blend of comedy and elements of horror. And in this video, I wanted to go through each and every one of the main Glitch Production shows and discuss the different types of horror that are used. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, the Amazing Digital Circus is an interesting one. You wouldn't think that it would have a ton of horror because of how it looks, but no. Pretty strong horror elements here, particularly what's going on in this scene right here. Analog horror. Analog horror uses like corrupted technology and just like older technology as a means of horror. The Walton Files and FNAF did this. Psychological horror as well. The trauma and the torment of just being trapped in this digital prison, a prison just made of 1 and 0 digits. In episode 3, there's also some elements of supernatural horror. I mean, Pomni literally gets freaking possessed, and they're being chased by the beheaded angel, and yeah, pretty crazy stuff. The psychological horror element gets touched on more in even a lighter-hearted episode like Fast Food Masquerade. Gangle kind of crashes out and it looks like she's about to abstract, and that's really what psychological horror is. Themes of insanity, paranoia, and trauma, which are pretty heavily delved into in The Amazing Digital Circus. More subtle than its counterparts, but no less effective, if you ask me. The Amazing Digital Circus is really great at blending all the different types of horror that it incorporates into the series. The Gaslight District, if you ask me, probably the darkest and the most horrific of Glitch Productions' offerings thus far. One of the main genres that I noticed, like off rip, just within the first few minutes, the opening scene of the Gaslight District was dark fantasy. There is a definitive dark fantasy that heavily permeates the Gaslight District. The immortality that the Rotlings have, which is what humanity has become, is less of a gift and more of divine punishment. There's also some elements of eldritch horror as well and cosmic dread. The inhabitants believe that they have been abandoned by God and worship a being known as the Black Hand. Praise the Black Hand that gave them immortality. There's also an end of the world kind of like a doomsday prophecy. The beast that has black blood, when it appears, it will be the harbinger of their destruction and of their death. That finally ending this vicious cycle of immortality. One thing that I've noticed, this kind of reminds me of Lovecraft's, H.P. Lovecraft stories in a way. He actually invented the cosmic and the eldritch horror genre. It's also known as Lovecraftian horror. Is that the dark fantasy and the cosmic horror elements kind of play off of each other. Cosmic horror, the essential part of cosmic horror is existential dread, forces beyond our understanding and realizing our insignificance in the universe. Hey guys, this is Editing Me. I just realized I forgot one of the most prominent parts of the Gaslight District, parts of horror that is, and that is the body horror. Because they can't die, well, they can't die, but they can definitely be harmed. So you'll see characters that obviously don't have their original limbs and have been dismembered and replaced somehow. And Ken literally has a freaking cleaver stuck in his head. And just all of these horrific and involuntary deformities. And yeah, the Knights of Guinevere is very interesting because of how little we know about it. But there's still some definitive horror elements that permeate the world, particularly sci-fi horror. Obviously, it takes place in a science fiction world, and this massive amusement park, highly technologically advanced. There's something fishy going on, but we don't quite know what. The unsettling imagery, like the destroyed android and the android being literally drug around by her guts in the first few minutes of the show. Pretty gnarly stuff. And also the psychological horror as well. There's a definite feeling of paranoia and dread that the two main characters feel. Like, once again, we know something's fishy, we know something's up, but we don't quite know what it is. And I felt like it was pretty efficient at keeping you on your toes. And I felt like this was a particularly good job at how Glitch included psychological horror in The Knights of Guinevere. And because of how little we know about the series, I am very interested to see where they go with it and what other elements of horror, if any at all, which I'm almost certain they will, include in The Knights of Guinevere. Murder Drones is a very interesting case because of how many different kinds of horror it uses and how it goes about blending them. One of the elements, this actually isn't one of my favorite genres. I don't like this as a genre in horror, is slasher. Villains like Doll and the Disassembly Drones really play into the whole slasher kind of feel, and Uzi fulfilling and subverting the final girl trope. Also, like, another part of the slasher genre is the violence. Like, it's straight up brutal. Hearts getting ripped out, dismemberment, characters are outright crushed. Yeah. And also, like, some elements of action horror as well, particularly with the prom scene at the end of episode 3. Another type of horror that's seen, not like really so much throughout the series, but definitely very prominent as it goes on, and prominent nonetheless, is body horror. You see quite a bit of body horror in the series. Sin's possession completely warps and, in a way, kind of destroys the vessels she's possessing. It's seen with Uzi in episode 4 and with Nori in episodes 6 and 7. They grow wings. Sin herself is like the living embodiment of body horror. She literally eviscerated a child and wore her as a freaking suit. Sin used a child suit to hide from the robots, while William Afton used a robot suit to hide from the children. No, I'm not sorry. Another thing that's definitely more prominent than I originally thought it was in Murder Drones is eldritch horror. I mean, besides your usual, like, monster or killer that you would have in your horror movie, Sin is or the Absolute Solver is a being of godlike power with reality warping and reality destroying powers. And also the existential and cosmic dread of knowing that the earth has been completely destroyed. Once again, one of the key elements of cosmic horror is knowing, or I guess realizing, the massively powerful forces at play and despairing at the fact that we are so insignificant and that there's nothing about it that can be done. Another part of Murder Drones, not as prominent as the others, but still present nonetheless, is the psychological horror. The character's trauma is delved into several times throughout the series. Sin is very manipulative, uses illusions, past trauma, and tricks of the mind to further torment her prey, as she is incredibly sadistic. The holograms too, like just wondering sometimes what's real and what isn't. What am I really looking at here? And the apparent insanity of Alice would be another thing I'd like to reference, that sort of it would be psychological horror. Anyways, that is all I have for today. Was there any elements of horror that I missed in any of these series that you'd like to point out? Let me know down in the comments. Bit of a longer video. What did you guys think? I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit that like and subscribe button. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.